Welcome back to So What Does That Mean? The podcast where we break down engineering, planning, and construction in plain English. I'm Brendan, the engineer.
And I'm Joanne. If you're a developer, builder, homeowner, investor, or just someone trying to make sense of the construction world, you're in the right place.
Every episode, we take something that can cost people real money, real time, and real stress, and we unpack it in a way that actually makes sense.
No jargon walls, no lectures, just practical, common sense advice from the people who see these issues every day. Okay, Brendan, today we're talking about something that sounds boring, but is genuinely going to cost people money this year: the new National Construction Code.
The NCC, the rulebook for how buildings have to be designed and built in Australia. And there's a brand new edition landing right now, NCC 2025.
And right now is the key bit because the timing is genuinely confusing.
It is. The code is reviewed every 3 years. NCC 2025 was previewed in February 2026, and the final version was published on the 1st of May 2026. So despite the 2025 name, this is a 2026 event for most people. The name and the timing don't match, and that trips up a lot of people.
So why should a normal homeowner or small developer care about a technical code update?
Because it changes what you're legally required to build, and several of the changes add upfront cost. New energy and electrical requirements, new waterproofing and drainage rules, new measures against condensation and mould. Each one is sensible on its own, but together they lift the cost and the complexity of getting a building approval, of getting a building approved and signed off.
So let's clear up the dates because every state seems to be doing something slightly different.
Right. This is the practical bit. The National Code is published, but each state and territory decides when to actually switch it on. Some have adopted it from the 1st of May 2026. Others, like New South Wales and the ACT, have given the industry a transition period, roughly 12 months. So the old code and the new code run side by side for a while before the new one becomes compulsory.
So depending on where you are and when your approval lands, you might be under the old rules or the new rules.
Exactly. And there are cut-off rules based on when your application or approval is lodged. This is genuinely the kind of thing where getting it wrong by a few weeks can change which rules apply to your project. It pays to know exactly where your project sits.
And one state has basically said just not yet.
There's been a real spread of responses. Some immediate adoption, some long transitions, and one jurisdiction effectively holding off. So, is NCC 2025 in force? Has different answers depending on where you're building. The honest answer for any specific project is check, don't assume.
Okay, can you walk me through the headline changes? Start with one that affects the most homes.
Water management. The new code strengthens waterproofing and drainage requirements. Full rework of how water in and around buildings is handled, including balconies. And this matters enormously because waterproofing failure is the single most common serious defect in Australian buildings. The code is directly targeting the thing that goes wrong most often.
So it's expensive now to prevent something far more expensive later?
That's the whole logic. Getting waterproofing right at construction might cost a few $100s in a wet area. Fixing it after the tiles and finishes are on can cost well over $15,000 per area. The code is essentially saying spend the small amount now, or the building owner pays the huge amount later.
Condensation and mould?
Big one for health and comfort. New homes are built tighter and better sealed than ever, which is great for energy use. But a sealed up house can trap moisture, and trapped moisture means condensation and mould. The new code brings in measures like vapor permeable membranes and properly vented cavities to let buildings breathe.
Then the energy and electrical side.
The new code pushes hard on energy efficiency, especially for commercial and apartment buildings, with things like on-site solar and be ready to go electric requirements, space and wiring capacities so the building can be electrified later, even if it has gas now. The direction is clearly towards near zero operational energy over time.
And there are some social changes too.
Yes, things like increased female toilet ratios and sanitary product dispensers in new commercial and public buildings, and upgraded fire safety rules for car parks attached to commercial and apartment buildings. It's a broad update. It touches health, safety, sustainability, and amenity all at once.
Here's the tension. We're in a housing crisis, builders are going broke, and now that there's codes that adds costs. Isn't that the worst possible timing?
That's the genuine debate, and it's a fair one. On one side, every extra requirement adds cost, and added cost makes housing less affordable and squeezes builders who are already under pressure. That's why some states have gone slow or held off. They're worried about disrupting housing supply.
And on the other side?
The other side says we've been building too many defective buildings, and the cost of those defects, the leaks, the molds, the repairs, the disputes, is enormous and largely hidden. A bit more rigor up front saves a fortune in rectification and misery later. Both sides are right, which is why it's genuinely hard.
So where do you land?
I land on the changes targeting water and moisture are well aimed because those are exactly the defects bankrupting building owners. But, and this is important, a rule only helps if it's actually understood and applied properly. A new waterproofing standard that's ignored or done badly helps no one. The code change only delivers if the design and the certification behind it are done right.
Which is the part people skip.
Constantly. People treat compliance as a box to tick at the end, but the new code rewards thinking about these things at design stage, not discovering at the certification stage that the building doesn't actually meet the rules.
So let's talk about something people hear and don't understand. Deemed to satisfy versus performance solutions.
Good, because this is where engineering earns its money. The code gives you two ways to comply. The first is deemed to satisfy. Follow the recipe exactly. Tick the boxes. Done. It's simple but rigid.
And the second?
A performance solution. That's where, instead of following the recipe, an engineer demonstrates that a different design still meets the underlying performance requirement. It's just as safe, just as compliant, achieved a different way. It's the flexible problem-solving path.
When would you actually want that?
All the time on real sites. When the standard recipe doesn't fit your building, your block, or your budget. A performance solution can let you do something the deemed to satisfy path wouldn't allow. A different structural approach, a different fire strategy, a different way to handle a tricky site, while still being fully compliant and signed off. It can save serious money and unlock designs that would otherwise be impossible.
And that's a JCE service?
It is. Performance solutions are core engineering work for us, and as the code gets more demanding, the value for someone who can find a compliant, smarter path rather than just defaulting to the most expensive recipe goes up.
Bring in the paperwork, because you've done whole blog posts on these forms and people still glaze over.
They glaze over until they need one. In simple terms, when an engineer designs or assesses part of a building, they certify it. They put their name and professional liability behind a statement that it complies. In Queensland, those are forms like Form 15 for a design or Form 12 for inspection and aspect certificate.
And under a tougher code, those certificates carry more weight?
Much more. The certifier and the building approval process rely on those engineering certificates to confirm the tricky parts. The structure, the waterproofing approach, the performance solution actually comply. As the code raises the bar, the quality of the engineering and the certification behind it becomes the thing standing between a compliant building and an expensive problem.
So the form isn't bureaucracy, it's accountability.
Exactly. It's someone qualified saying, I've checked this and I'm standing behind it. In a defect-prone industry, that signature matters.
So some practical steps. If I've got a project on the go right now.
First, find out which code applies to your project. Old code or new code. It depends on your state and your timing. Don't assume, confirm. This single question can change your design and your budget.
Second,
if you're early in design for the new code, even if you're technically allowed to use the old one for a while. You don't want to design under the old rules and then get caught when they switch. Building to the newer standard also future-proofs the building's value.
Thirdly,
take waterproofing and moisture seriously at the design stage, not as a finishing afterthought. That's where the new code bites and where the worst defects come from. Get it designed and detailed properly and get it certified.
fourth,
If the standard path doesn't fit your project, ask whether a performance solution could give you a better compliant outcome. Don't just accept the most expensive default.
and lastly,
Make sure the engineering certification is solid. The forms aren't red tape. They're the proof your building actually meets the rules, and they're what protects you down the track. Some practical takeaways. 1. NCC 2025 is real and landing now. Published in May 2026, despite the 2025 name.
2. Adoption timing varies by state. Check which code applies to your specific project.
3. The big changes are water management, condensation, mould, and energy, plus fire and amenity updates.
4. It adds upfront costs, but it's targeting the defects that cost building owners the most, especially waterproofing.
5. Performance solutions can give you a compliant, cheaper, or smarter path when the standard recipe doesn't fit.
And finally, solid engineering certification, the forms, is what proves compliance and protects you later. Has the new code already changed something on your project? A cost, a design, a delay?
Tell us on YouTube or through JCE. And if you're not sure which code applies to you, that's a 5-minute question worth asking before it becomes an expensive one. A new building code always feels like a hassle and a cost, but most of NCC 2025 is aimed squarely at the things that have been going wrong: water, moisture, and energy.
So it's less about red tape and more about building things that don't fail.
And the projects that handle it best won't be the ones that fight the code. They'll be the ones that design for it early and get the engineering and certification right.
If this episode cleared up the new code for you, share it with someone who's building or developing this year. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, and connect with us on LinkedIn.
And as always, if you've got a topic, a question, or a building headache you want us to unpack, send it through to JCE. We genuinely enjoy this stuff.
Thanks for listening.
See you on the next one.